Hi, everybody. Now it's time for the autobiography and hook assignment. So, like, when you look at any book, those books on the cover or within the cover contain two very essential bits of information. And these are a short autobiography, also known as a bio, of the writer, the artist, and as well as a hook or a synopsis of the story. So the autobiography tells the reader who you are, who wrote this book, who illustrated the book, and the hook or the synopsis is what's like if they read that and it's compelling enough, they're going to want to buy that book. So we're going to go through both of these step by step. So the first is the autobiography. This tells the readers about you, and it should contain some very essential information. And this would be, naturally, it'd be your name, when and where you were born, where you went to school and what you studied. Oh, I left this out. Where you live currently, what accomplishments you've achieved, and anything else that seems important for people to know about you. In these autobiographies that we're going to create for class, it's also really important that you let people know that this is your first book, or if you have other publications, indicate that, and what you want to do when you get out of school. I want to go back to the accomplishments part. So the accomplishments, that could be any number of things. Like, I know Roshan, like you have your own organization, and you and your nephew published a book together, and those are the kind of things that would go in the accomplishments. That, like, some of you might have scholarships, some of you might volunteer, like some of you, I believe, Milton, you've acted in plays. Like, all of you, like all of you have some sort of accomplishment under your belt. Since we're just starting this out, you won't have the National Book Award or anything like that, but you've all accomplished something that you're proud of in life. So we're going to look at I put Emil Ferris. It's Emily Ferris, or maybe it's just Emil. I think it is Emil. Emil Ferris. So she wrote this really great, she wrote and illustrated this really great book called My Favorite Thing is Monsters. And what's amazing about this is prior to creating it, she had been bitten by, I think, a spider, and then became partially paralyzed and lost the use of her hands and had to regain that use again. She's confined to a wheelchair, and she taught herself, even though she'd been an illustrator before, she had to teach herself how to draw all over again. And believe me, it's the most amazing set of illustrations. And I wish I would have brought it to class before the coronavirus, but I stupidly didn't. If you ever get a chance, a lot of times you can find it at a half-price book. So we're going to read this autobiography, and then I'm going to break it down. So Emil Ferris grew up in Chicago during the turbulent 1960s, where Emil still lives and is consequently a devotee of all things monstrous and horrific. In a previous life, Emil was an illustrator and toy sculptor for a diverse range of clients. Emil has an MFA from the Art Institute of Chicago. In 2010, Ferris was made a Toby Devin Lewis Fellow in the Visual Arts. My Favorite Thing is Monsters is Emil's first, but not last, graphic novel. So she puts hers in the inside cover of her book, but some people also put it on the back. So let's break this down. So I said you need to put her name. Her name is Emil Ferris, not Emily, as I said. It's Emil Ferris. And then where she's from and where she lives. So she grew up in Chicago during the turbulent 1960s, where Emil still lives. in her case, like when you're doing your accomplishments, she feels it's important as part of her accomplishments to list what she did prior to writing and illustrating this book. In a previous life, Emil was an illustrator and toy sculptor for a diverse range of clients. Where she went to school. Emil has an MFA from the Art Institute of Chicago. Here's another accomplishment. In 2010, Ferris was made a Toby Devan Lewis Fellow in the Visual Arts. I cannot read. And then finally, she indicates that this is her first novel. My Favorite Things is Monsters is Emil's first but not last graphic novel. So we have this information about her. It's pretty concise. It's pretty to the point. It doesn't go on. And it briefly tells everybody about Emil Ferris. So this is like a longer autobiography. I condensed it somewhat because she has a ton of accomplishments. But this is Tibu, and Tibu actually came to the University of Houston and talked to my graphic novel students and other students last spring in 2019. So I'm going to read it. I know you can read, but Tibu was born 3 months before the end of the Vietnam War and came to the United States in 1978 as part of the Boat People wave of refugees from Southeast Asia. Her debut graphic memoir, The Best We Could Do, was a national bestseller and has been selected as a National Book Critics Circle finalist and a Best of 2017 picked by Time, The Washington Post, and many other publications. She is also the illustrator of A Different Pond by the acclaimed poet Bao Phi that was awarded a Caldecott honor. Vu taught high school in New York City and was a founding teacher of the Oakland International High School, the first public high school in California for recent immigrants and English learners. She currently teaches in the MFA comic book program at the California College of the Arts. She lives in Berkeley with her son, her husband, and her mother. So again, it's pretty concise, and we're going to break it down. So her name's Tibu, where she was born, where she moved, and why. This is extra information because it's really important for part of her story. She was born 3 months before the end of the Vietnam War and came to the United States in 1978 as part of the Boat People wave of refugees from Southeast Asia. I have a friend, Lynn, who also came over with the Boat People when she was 3. So next we have her books. Her debut graphic memoir, The Best We Could Do. And then I also, in red down here, I have another book of hers. She's also the illustrator of A Different Pond. Her accomplishments, she has a ton of them, and we don't have them all listed. So her graphic novel was a national bestseller and has been selected, blah, 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 blah. She was awarded the Caldecott honor. And then, although she doesn't, like this doesn't say where she went to school, it does say where she taught and where she teaches. So like in this high school in New York City, and then the Oakland International High School, and now she teaches in the MFA comic program at the California College of the Arts, and then finally where she currently lives. She lives in Berkeley with her son, her husband, and her mother. So even though the organization of this is not always the same as what I'm giving you on your assignment, it's okay to move it around, but only if it makes sense and it's organized correctly. So even though also that this is more information than you give in your biography, you still don't want to go on and on and on because like you don't want your reader to get tired of reading it. But you also want to let people know like who you are and what you've done, and this like that this is your first or second book or whatever, just so they could see that you're, I guess, somebody of substance, or that they're interested in finding out about you. So that's the autobiography part. And I'll go over the instructions in a little bit. So then the hook, the synopsis. So you're going to have like this interesting back and front cover design, but you also, you want to grab them in the hook. It's usually on the back page because you want to compel them to want to read the book and buy it immediately. So this is what grabs the reader. It's usually found on the back cover, like I just said. And if it's doing its job right, it makes you want to buy it. So the hook, what it does is it sums up the story. I meant to take off the word metaphorically because that's too hard to like explain here. But so it's going to tell what the story is about literally and the emotional content of it. It's going to also relay the story in broad terms. So you don't want to like go into a million details because that's what your book's for. You just want to give them a general broad idea of what the story is about. And you're trying to convince the reader like why they should want to read it and what they'll gain from reading it. And the hook also conveys what's universal about the story, how we all can relate to the struggle or the happiness or the heartbreak of the hero's journey, or the hero's journey that the main characters are going through. So like most things are universal. Like for example, Christian, your book is about this dog that was abused and then is able to convince the person that abused it to treat people betterly. And betterly, that's a new word, betterly, better and more compassionately. And that's, you know, like those are universal stories, whether it's a dog that's being mistreated or a person that's being mistreated, or you're talking behind your friend's back. And we all, you know, it's really important that we all learn to be more compassionate and loving and understanding of people. And that's the universal part of that story. And that we all, in one way or the other, go through these things. So I'm going to read Aya's hook, and then I'm going to break it down. So Aya tells a story of its 19-year-old heroine, the studious and clear-sighted Aya, her easygoing friends Anjuja and Binto, and their meddling relatives and neighbors. It's a breezy, wryly funny account of the desire for joy and freedom, of the simple pleasures and private troubles of everyday life in Yop City. An unpretentious and gently humorous story of an Africa we rarely see, spirited, hopeful, and resilient. Aya won the 2006 award for Best First Album at the Angoulême, I'm going to mispronounce this, Angoulême International Comics Festival. Clement Obreli, he's the illustrator. Warm colors and energetic, playful line connect expressively with Marguerite Abouet's vibrant writing. So we're going to break it down into components. So the first part is you're summing up the story in terms of what the story is about, both literally and emotionally. So what's the story literally about? This tells the story of a 19-year-old heroine, the studious and clear-sighted Aya, her easygoing friends, and Anjoya and Bintu, and their meddling relatives and neighbors. It tells the story of an Africa we rarely see. That's what it's literally about. So emotionally, what's the story? How would you sum up the story emotionally? Pardon me. It's a breezy and rarely funny account, an unpretentious and gently humorous story. Well, that's what it's about, like emotionally. Like some of your stories might be dramatic and like scary and full of twists and turns, you know, like you're gonna have to figure out like, how do I sum up my story? How is it funny? Is it scary? Is it dramatic? What is it? And then you're gonna try to convince the reader why they should read the book. Well, one thing is like it should be an interesting story, and I'm just doing the best I can breaking down like it's a funny book, and you know, like it'll broaden your like your understanding of Africa, because a lot of times all we see is war and disease and corruption, but you know, like regular people live there, so it shows a side of Africa that we don't normally see: spirited, hopeful, and resilient. And also, like, you'll gain a better understanding of how life is like very similar in the city of Yop. It's not really that much different than life is over here in the States. So you'll gain a better understanding of people who may live in a different country, but because they're people, like, we all share a lot of stuff in common. Look how emotional I got talking about that. And then, so that's what you want to do. So I'm going to go over the assignment. If you have any questions, please contact me. Let me know immediately. Like, get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to explain things to you. If you need to call me, I'm going to give y'all all my phone number. I'll give it to you right now. But I'll also post it on Blackboard. My cell phone number is 346-241-2459. Don't call me too late and don't call me too early, but like anytime between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., totally fine if you call me. So the rough draft of your autobiography and the hook assignment, which by the way will be in the same folder, that's due on Monday, April 6th by midnight. And then I'm going to look at them, and I'm going to edit them and return them to you with suggestions. I'll get them to you by the weekend. I have a whole lot of other stuff to grade that week, so I'll get to them as quickly as I can, but I think I have like 100 other things to grade. Boy, that'll be fun during the coronavirus. So like, I'll send it back to you, and then your final revisions, which are worth 100 possible points. I started to say 1,000. Woo, the rough drafts, 25, the revisions, 100. Those are due Wednesday, April the 15th at midnight. You're going to submit these through Blackboard Message as a Word attachment. You're going to save your document file as your name, Auto, and Hook. And you can only send me Word docs or Word doc X's. Don't send me a PDF. Don't send me Pages. Don't send me ODT. I'm not going to accept any other form but a Word doc or Word doc X, just like I have with all written documents all semester. When you send images, you can send me a JPEG. These are the formatting instructions. As always, use correct spelling, full sentences, proper punctuation, and spelling. I said it twice. Capitalize the words when appropriate. Remember, you're not texting me, so no abbreviations or purposely misspelled words. Include your name and date on the first page. Try to have this like well organized. Try to make it as clear and understandable as possible. Your autobiography should be anywhere between 75 to 100 words. Don't make it longer. Don't make it shorter. If it's like 102 words, that's fine. If it's 73 words, that's fine. But try not to go beyond that. Your hook, it can't be any more than 200 words. It has to fit on the back. If it's either too long or too short, like on the hook, don't make it less than 150 words. I didn't write this down here, but it needs to be anywhere from 150 to 200 words. I'll put that in the instructions. If it's either more than 10% too short or too long, then I'm going to take off percentage points. Like, I don't have time to read a lot of stuff, and whoever's buying your book doesn't either. Okay, so the autobiography. You're going to tell the reader about you. Like, you got to give them your name, when and where you were born, where you live, where you went to school, what you studied, what accomplishments you've achieved, and anything else that seems important for people to know about you. I keep forgetting to put on here, like, when and where you were born, but where you live now. You're also going to include, if this is your first book, like some of you, it's not. And also, like, what you want to do when you get out of school. Like, if you've ever been in an art exhibit or anything, or you like won the rodeo, art exhibition, you can include that in accomplishments, whatever you feel like is important. Then the hook. You're going to sum up the story literally and emotionally. What's it about and what's the mood of the story? You're going to relay the story in broad terms. I don't want a whole lot of unnecessary details. Make it short, but make it clear and understandable. You're going to, while you're writing all this, you're going to try to make it so compelling that it, and interesting that it convinces the reader why they should read the book and what they'll gain from it. And you're also going to contain, like, have information about what's universal about your story. Is it about desire? Is it about revenge? Is it about love? Is it about compassion? Is it about isolation, depression? All those things, those are all universal things. So again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. If I'll send you an email, and if you still need help, give me, I'll call you. Give me your phone numbers. Make sure I have your phone numbers too. Okay. So, look, this is out of order. This goes earlier. You can disregard it. I talked about this earlier on, but so just Miss Secor, shut up. Just totally disregard the slide because I have it elsewhere. Okay, I think that's the last slide. Yep, it is. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready to post this, and I'm gonna post this assignment. And I hope y'all are all still healthy, and please let me know how you're doing because I miss you. Okay, goodbye.